Did you know that the ground beneath Canada holds almost everything the world wants right now? This country holds the power to influence how the modern world eats and moves and keeps the lights on. And you might be sitting in a house built on that very same land right now. So how did one cold, polite country up north end up sitting on the resources the whole planet can't live without? The answer starts in the most boring-looking province on the map. That province is Saskatchewan. Look at it and your eyes just slide right off. A flat rectangle stuck in the middle of the country. Go back far enough, way before anything walked on land, and this entire stretch was the bottom of a shallow sea. For millions of years, bit by bit, layers of sediment sank down and piled up on that seabed. Then the water dried off and disappeared. And what it left buried down there is worth more than gold. That old Dead Sea handed Saskatchewan two things. One you can see from the highway, one you'd never know was there. The one you can see is the farmland. That flat prairie turned into some of the best cropland in North America. Good soil, wide open, easy to work. But that's not the prize. The real prize is a kilometer straight down. It's called potash. And Saskatchewan doesn't just have a bit of it. It's sitting on more than anywhere else on Earth. Roughly 40% of everything we know about. Now, potash sounds like nothing. It's everything. It's one of the main things that goes into fertilizer, and fertilizer is the only reason the world grows enough food. Here's the deal. Every crop pulls goodness out of the dirt. And if you don't put it back, the soil dies and grows nothing. Potash puts it back. Pull it out of the picture, and farms everywhere start growing way less. We're talking about feeding more than 8 billion mouths. That whole system, the thing standing between people and empty plates, runs partly through a province most folks won't even slow down to look at. Put some numbers on it. Germany, a serious country, digs up about 3 million tons of potash a year. Saskatchewan digs up more than double that, from a place people call flyover country. If Saskatchewan were its own nation, it'd be one of the most important food suppliers alive. Not for what grows on top of the dirt, but for what's hiding under it. And think about what that hands Canada. When the price of food jumps in a country halfway across the world, part of the fix is buried under Saskatchewan. When a nation wants to grow more to feed its own people, it comes shopping here. That's not just money. That's a seat at the table nobody can take away, because you can't fake a potash deposit and you can't grow one somewhere else. Either you're sitting on it or you're not. Canada is sitting on the biggest one there is. And that's only gift number one. Gift number two is uranium. Up in the north end of the province, there's an area called the Athabasca Basin, and it holds the richest uranium ever found on the planet. Full stop. Mines up there, like Cigar Lake and MacArthur River, sit on ore about 100 times stronger than the world average. That matters more than it sounds. When your ore is that rich, you dig up way less rock to get the same fuel. Less digging, less hauling, less mess, more energy. And uranium is dense stuff. One little pellet the size of your fingertip carries about as much energy as a whole ton of coal. A fingertip against a truckload. Right now, uranium pulled out of northern Saskatchewan is running reactors in France and in South Korea, and down in the States, and across the pond in the UK. Homes on the far side of the world lit up by Canadian rock. And that's the kind of resource that's only getting more important, not less. The whole world is scrambling for power that doesn't cook the planet, and nuclear is right back in the conversation. Countries are building new reactors again. Every one of those reactors needs fuel, and the best fuel on Earth comes out of the ground in northern Canada. So while other places are hunting for an edge, Canada already has one buried and waiting. One province, one Dead Sea. Two things the planet leans on hard, and Saskatchewan is only the start. Slide one province over to Alberta. Everybody knows Alberta has oil, but hardly anyone gets the scale. Under Alberta sit the oil sands, and the province holds around 165 billion barrels you can actually pull up and use. That's the fourth biggest proven oil reserve on Earth. Only Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, and Iran beat it. A single Canadian province is standing shoulder to shoulder with the biggest oil names on the map, not trailing them, level with them. Here's the part that gets me. That oil-soaked rock doesn't care about the border. The exact same geology that pumps out oil in Montana and North Dakota just keeps running north and crosses the line and becomes Alberta's oil sands. The rock didn't change. Only who owns it did. Somebody drew a line on a map back in 1818, and that line quietly handed one side a fortune nobody even knew was down there yet. And that fortune isn't just sitting there looking pretty. It runs down pipelines and gets loaded onto ships and keeps a chunk of North America moving every single day. The States buys a huge share of it. Think about what that means. The biggest, richest country going still needs to fill up partly from a tank that sits north of the border. That's the kind of thing that quietly shapes who has to be nice to who. Now head west to British Columbia. This one isn't about digging at all. It's about water. The Columbia River kicks off way up in the Rocky Mountain Trench, in the southeast corner of BC before it slips down into the States. By the time it reaches the Pacific, that river system has pumped out more hydropower than any other in North America. Around 40% of all the electricity in the Pacific Northwest comes off dams on that river. And here's the twist. The dams are American, the water's Canadian. It starts up here, so even the power buzzing through American homes has Canadian water running through it. Saskatchewan, Alberta, and BC. Different resource every time, same story every time. Food, fuel, power, all packed inside one country's borders. So, you might be thinking, hang on, plenty of countries have resources. What makes Canada special? Fair question, because here's the hard truth. Having stuff in the ground does not make you rich or powerful on its own. History proves that over and over. Look around. Nigeria has loads of oil. The Congo has cobalt and gold and just about everything else. Venezuela literally sits on the biggest oil reserve on the planet. None of them turned into powerhouses because of it. Some came out worse. There's even a name for the trap. They call it the resource curse. It works like this. When a government can just live off digging things up, it stops bothering to build a real country around it. The money's too easy. So the roads don't get built, the courts go crooked, the rules stop meaning anything. Everything rots while a few people up top get rich. So why didn't that swallow Canada? Because Canada had the whole package, not just the loot underground. The resources here happen to sit inside a stable, calm country. Honest courts, roads and rail that actually work. Banks with the money to build a mine. Rules regular people can trust. And on top of all that, Canada is parked right next to the biggest spender in human history, the United States. That's the piece everyone misses. Stuff underground only turns into power if you can dig it and move it and pay for it and sell it. 4 steps. Most countries choke on at least one. They can dig it but can't move it. They can move it but nobody's buying. Canada nails all 4 at once. That's the whole game right there. That's what turns plain rock and running water into real usable power. And here's the strangest twist of all. Almost none of it sits where the people are. Nearly 90% of Canadians live within 100 miles of the American border, way down south where it's warm and easy. The treasure is hundreds of miles north out in the cold. There's a spot up there called Uranium City built right on top of the richest uranium ever found. You'd think it'd be booming. Today it's got about 70 people in it. 70. The most important ground on the planet, and it's basically a ghost town. Canada is really 2 countries wearing one flag. The busy, warm south where everybody lives, and the empty, frozen north where all the real power sits waiting. So line it all up and look at what this country actually holds. The stuff that grows the world's food, the fuel for nuclear plants across 4 continents, one of the biggest oil piles on Earth, rivers strong enough to light up other nations. Drop all of that into one place and give it a stable government and a rich neighbor lining up to buy, and you don't call it a quiet little country minding its own business. You call it a superpower, flat out. That's what it is. Canada just never brags about it. And that's the whole thing. Canadians grew up being told they're the polite ones, the quiet ones, the friendly neighbor who says sorry too much and never makes a scene. All true. But under all that politeness sits a country holding cards the rest of the world would claw each other apart to get. Somebody wants to grow more food, they need what's here. Somebody wants cleaner power, they need what's here. Somebody wants fuel, they come knocking here. That's not weakness. That's leverage. And Canada's been holding it the whole time without raising its voice once. You see it clearest when the trade fights start. When countries start slapping tariffs around and throwing their weight at each other, the ones who win are the ones holding something the other side can't do without. And that's exactly the position Canada's in. You can slap all the tariffs you want, but if you need the potash to feed your farms and the uranium to run your reactors, you're still coming to the table. That's the difference between shouting and actually having power. Shouting fades. Sitting on 40% of the world's potash does not. Canada doesn't need to win the argument. It already owns the ground the argument is standing on. So next time you're driving across some flat, empty stretch of prairie thinking, there's nothing out there, remember what's a kilometer under your tires. Remember the sea that dried up and left a fortune behind. Canada isn't waiting to become important someday. It already is, right now. The rest of the world just hasn't said it out loud yet.